Hey, everybody, welcome to the Monday edition of Winners and Winers Radio. As always, I am your host, Scott Steehn, lead handicapper at winnersandwiners.com.
And I'm Scott Reichel, co-host and senior handicapper over at winnersandwiners.com.
And together we do make up Winners and Winers Radio. Give us an hour and we'll give you the winners. No whiners, all winners, baby. Scott, NFL full board preseason games this weekend. How'd you do? You end up okay?
Overall, NFL, I really didn't get that much involvement. I ended up losing one play I gave out over the weekend. Seemed like every single play I took personally won, but that doesn't make anybody feel better at home, so sorry about that. Other than that, though, baseball was fine, so overall had a pretty good weekend. How about you?
Oh, not too terrible. We had a good Friday and a good Saturday. But then Sunday was no bueno. So, yeah, kind of hot and cold. A couple of results didn't go our way. Hard to believe preseason football didn't go the way I drew it up. I'm stunned. I really am. But you know what? It's football. Is it better than not having football to bet on, Scott?
I feel like that's a rhetorical question.
I mean, because there's so much uncertainty. You have to cap it entirely different than you cap the rest of the season.
That's definitely not incorrect because, of course, you have all the starters or most of them that are now benched for pretty much the entire game or two now. But as a whole, I always liked betting preseason. I like the fact that the coaches don't give you the okie doke. They just tell you straight up who's playing and who's not playing, which I do find reassuring. I'm not going to panic over one loss I gave out publicly. I think as a whole, I know we won the Steelers and the under in the Hall of Fame game. As for the actual weekend, I lost the Jaguars play, which was just frustrating because nothing went right for them. But as a whole, I had a couple unders, and I had the Cardinals' money line against Dallas. So I had a decent preseason weekend. I'm not going to panic with it. I feel like you kind of know what you're going to get with it in the sense that if you recognize the fact you're going to be relying on a bunch of third or fourth stringers who are never going to see the field during the regular season, then you find the preseason betting more tolerable. But if you're expecting to see reliable players play serious minutes down the stretch, preseason's not for you.
No, and it is. And I always advise my clients to just kind of maybe temper your unit amounts, maybe dial them back, a full unit or so from what you'd normally play, just because there is so much uncertainty. And you say that Andy Reid did give us a little bit of the okie doke where he said Mahomes was going to play the entire first quarter. And then Henne was going to play the second and third, and then Gordon and Bouchel would mop up there in the fourth quarter. That's not how it went down, as Mahomes played one series, and then Henne took pretty much the rest of the first quarter, part of the second quarter, and then we saw Anthony Gordon and Shane Bouchel. So I'm not appreciating Big Red here. I got to be honest with you. We had the over there. I bet that we probably still should have hit. And it was a situation where they put up 35, over was 38, missed a field goal, 2 extra points, threw an interception at the goal line, and a terrible no call. I don't know if you're watching that game, Scott, but there was a terrible no call when Gordon slid down at about the 35-yard line or so, and it was just drilled mid-slide, head, carpet, or field, rather, just a horrible shot. It gets called 10 out of 10 times in the regular season, and that's a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. They missed it. They kicked the field goal instead. That would have been a big point. So, yeah, everything that went wrong for us in that game. So, but we know what? We don't want to turn into the Scott bitches about his weekend show. It was frustrating. It was frustrating to watch. But you know what, Scott? I wasn't the only one frustrated this weekend. There was all kinds of people that were frustrated by the results. There were people that thought they had winners. And they did. They had a winner, Scott, right up until the time they didn't. We've all been there. It's one of the most frustrating feelings in the world. All you can do, you tear your tickets up, and you pick out your phone and call the cops. All right, Scott, let's start in the major leagues. As always, we're taking a look at a Saturday game. This is the Yankees White Sox. You had under 8.5. Pretty good shape. He had to sweat a little bit, but finally the end of the game comes around. You're right where you need to be. It's 4-3 Yankees going into the bottom of the ninth. All they have to do is keep the White Sox from tying it up or winning it. Yeah, they did neither one of those things. White Sox tied the game, sent it to extra innings. Of course, by that time, it doesn't matter because it's 4-4 and there's nothing good that's going to happen to keep you under that total. Yankees ended up winning it 7-5, which is even more frustrating because they could have just won the game in the first place. That ain't how it went down. And if you had the under 8.5 Yankees at White Sox, call the cops, baby.
And looking at the other call the cops, but this one is actually going to be in WNBA. That's right. The women are back on the court. And if you had the under in the Seattle Storm Chicago Sky game, first of all, go to a meeting. Second of all, you were in good shape. You had 158 points in regulation, which means you win because that's less than 160. Wait a minute. I heard that WNBA games do not end in ties. So they went to overtime.
Ooh.
And there's a reason why they call it overtime and not undertime. Game landed 172. Rip up your under ticket.
Yep, and go ahead and take a drink because we said they don't call it undertime.
Yep. We haven't said that in a long time, though, because baseball doesn't have overtime. They just have extra innings.
Right. Very, very true. All right, so this is a game from yesterday. If you had the Padres Diamondbacks under 9.5, pretty good shape. They were on 6 runs going into the 8th inning. Padres got the bats going a little bit yesterday, Scott. I don't know. Maybe had something to do with somebody rejoining the team, perhaps. But anyway, the Padres, they did score 4 runs in the top of the 8th, and that was all she wrote. The game ended up 8-2. Your under 9.5 came up a half a run short, but it might as well have been 30 runs short because neither one of those tickets are cashing. Time for you to call the cops.
You mean the return of a brand new outfielder in the midst in San Diego?
Yes, they finally got their left fielder. Is he playing left field, is he?
I believe so.
Yeah, that would make sense. So, well, Scott, there was good news to be doled out this weekend. These are the people that had the nice, easy victories, the ones where you didn't have to sweat. I can think of about 14 of them that went the right way. But if you had one of these games, one of these nice, easy victories, you got a little time to yourself. You didn't have to sweat it watching the whole game on TV because you were sitting in the rocking chair.
So the first one was not actually one game. It was 3 games. And it involved the Orioles and the Red Sox. If you had the Red Sox on the run line on either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you really only had to watch about, 2 innings?
Yeah.
Give or take in each game? The Red Sox minus 1.5 covered easily because they beat the Orioles in each of those 3 games by at least 4 runs. Fun times.
Scott, can I trot out a stat for you? The Orioles are on an 11-game losing streak.
Yep.
In that 11-game streak, they have given up, are you ready? 104 runs. That is 9.4 runs per game over 11 games. That is truly impressive. They have not, by the way, they've been outscored 104 to 34, Scott. So they've been outscored by 70 runs over 11 games, and they have only come within 2 runs one time. Everything else has been 3 or more. So just an absolutely dreadful week and a half for the Baltimore Orioles. I'm sure things will get much better as they head down to Tampa Bay for their start of the week series.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the bright side for Baltimore, they only gave up 6 yesterday. So their runs per game allowed actually went down during that streak.
Yep. Yeah, it did. It actually went down from 9.8 to 9.4. So, yeah, baby steps, Bob. So, Scott, if you had the Chicago Cubs, Miami Marlins over 7.5, like my premium players did on Friday night, that one went pretty well for us, Scott. It was 2-1 after the first inning. You're right where you need to be. It was 4-1 after the top of the second. You're like, oh, yeah, we are definitely going to win this game. And then, Scott, the Marlins stepped to the plate in the bottom of the second. They put up 11 runs, Scott. They put up 11 runs in the bottom of the second. At that point, it is now 12-4. Marlins and the Cubs, well, they wouldn't give up. They would go on to score 6 more. Marlins put up another 2 runs. Ends up 14-10, higher than about half the football games this weekend. But if you had the over 7.5 there, you had to watch exactly 1.5 innings plus about 4 more batters because they did hit a grand slam to put it over the total, and you were sitting in the rockinest of rocking chairs.
Well, props to the Marlins because they found a way to win a game that Luzardo started, which I really didn't expect because
Put up 14 runs. That's how you do it.
Yeah, he still didn't pitch well. But
Nope.
anyway, looking at the last rocking chair in yesterday's card, you had the Indians money line against the Tigers. So you're in pretty good shape when they scored 6 runs in the second inning, 5 runs in the third inning, so they're up 11-0, and your pitcher has a perfect game through about the first 7 innings. That's usually a good sign. Yeah, nobody scored again after the third inning, so you really watched about 2 hours of nothing. But the Indians won 11-0. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
There you go. And that is absolutely 3 excellent examples of sitting in the rocking chair. So, Scott, a lot of contestants this week or over the weekend rather, for the Golden Feed Bag. I'm anxious to see who we ended up with here. Let's find out. It's the Monday edition, everybody, of Donkey of the Day. Well, you had to talk me off of Matt Campbell. That was the one that I liked. We decided there was plenty of blame to go around in that game.
Dan Campbell.
And honestly, we knew we'd have more opportunities to make him wear the Golden Feed Bag. So, Scott, who's the donkey of the day?
Well, first of all, I think you meant Dan Campbell.
Or what did I say?
You said the Iowa State coach, Matt Campbell.
Is that his brother? No, it's not. It's
all good.
Dan Campbell. I'm sure at the end of this season, or probably about halfway through the season, Lions fans would much rather have Matt Campbell.
I'm sure that's true. But anyway, you mentioned football. We're going to stick with football. We're going to be looking at another team. It's actually donkeys of the day, or it could really be an entire franchise, because the Atlanta Falcons played over the weekend at home against the Tennessee Titans. We know Vrabel wasn't going to play anybody. Tannehill didn't play, of course. Derrick Henry didn't play, of course. And you figured Atlanta, maybe a decent chance to win the game. I know both of us had the under, so we definitely enjoyed what we saw. But Atlanta had several months to prepare some form of game plan offensively. And yet, the Falcons quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, did not play. A.J. McCarron and Felipe Franks combined went 7 for 21 for 21 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. That was the entire game, and they were in a dome. Do you have any comments about that? Because that's one of the worst quarterback displays, probably in a dome stadium, preseason or not, I've ever seen.
I wanted to see what their quarterback rating was.
I'm assuming Franks wasn't atrocious because he did have about 70-something rushing yards. So he did manage to move the chains a little bit. But you're telling me that in an entire game following months of preparation, you muster together 21 passing yards at home in a dome stadium?
Well, just for grins, A.J. McCarron's rating was 14.6.
Okay.
I believe that's going to be QBR, because this is what he used. So I hope, for God's sakes, I hope so. That's where, of course, 50 is median. So 14.6, not good. Felipe Franks, 39.6. So both of them were far below average. Felipe Franks, the much better quarterback, went 2 for 9 for 16 yards, Scott.
Yep. I just mentioned the rushing yards, but do you have any comments there? I know in the post game, the brand new coach of Atlanta said, I'm not going to overreact, but he said it about 6 times in the same press conference. So I'm starting to think he might overreact.
Feels like he's overreacting to me, just saying.
I know that it's still early and all, but do you need to find a new backup quarterback?
There's a couple of teams where you can seriously ask that question. That's absolutely true. The same thing happened up in Minnesota, where both quarterbacks there were dreadful. I really thought we had Atlanta in this game. I really thought the Falcons would have the advantage. A.J. McCarron probably has the most experience of anybody. Well, Matt Barkley, but Barkley started more games. A.J. McCarron actually had better stats, so I figured they would have the advantage over Woodside and Barkley. Not the case at all. Felipe Franks, I believed he would be terrible. He was. You know why, Scott?
Because he can't throw?
Because he was terrible in college.
Oh, well, I mean, it's the same thing. We just expressed it in different words.
He didn't magically get better when he stepped up a couple of weight classes to the NFL from the SEC there at Arkansas. So congratulations on signing your contract, Felipe Franks. I guess you're probably going to be on the third quarterback list all season long. So yay, way to go. Please.
You make an argument that you could have found other options, but 7 for 21 in a dome stadium. I mean, that the passing yards speak for itself.
Yeah, it's the first home game. Everybody's excited. It's awful. So
I have to mention every time it's in a dome stadium. There wasn't a tsunami.
Oh,
Like you can throw. It's not a big deal. The conditions were fine.
absolutely true. So, Scott, quick reminder that everybody, we are listening to Winners and Winers Radio. Give us an hour. We'll give you the winners. Oh, Scott. Well, let's do it. Let's talk about a lot of things. A lot of things going on over the weekend, but we want to talk about who might have been a little overserved this weekend. Scott, this is a segment. Sometimes it's the public, sometimes it's the sharps, sometimes it's the odds makers, and that's going to be the case today, Scott, because I believe you take a look at the first week of the preseason, the NFL, the odds makers, well, by God, they were drunk. Just put that anywhere. Well, Scott, we've had 17 games, counting the Hall of Fame games so far in this first week plus of preseason games. A little bit of a trend, Scott. You might be able to spot it if you're real sharp, as we are trained in this business. What's the trend we should be on, Scott?
The fact is that the totals are in the mid-30s. They should probably be in the mid-teens because the unders are 14-3.
14-3 are the unders, Scott. And one of those games was the game that I had yesterday. We had the under in the Colts game, and yeah, that was one of your overs right there. So that's about how I've been running. It took a third down, one-handed catch at the goal line and a 2-point conversion to beat us, but congratulations, they were able to do that. So is there anything you could do? Because, like you said, the numbers, the totals are probably down 10 to 12, 13 points from where they would be in the regular season. Is that about right?
Sounds about right. I mean, you expected a little bit of uncertainty going in when it came to the new preseason schedule. You weren't sure what the coaches' game plans were going to be. You knew that most starters were not going to play in most scenarios, but people weren't sure about the play calling, how conservative it would be. I think people underestimated it, obviously, because it's a lot of vanilla play calling. We'll see if it expands potentially in the future 2 games or so, but not pretty.
Yeah, a lot of games, the sweet spot seemed to be about 31 to 35. A lot of games landed in that range. Of course, most of the totals, with the exception of the Indy game yesterday, Indy Carolina game, most of those totals were around 38 to 40. Are we going to see more 34, 35, Scott? They have to make that adjustment, don't they?
That's the tricky part, because on one hand you do. On the other hand, if the starters are actually going to be playing more, maybe a series or two, then you might over-adjust to the under and you might see more points in the first half. So it's kind of a tricky spot for odds makers. I think they'll move it down maybe a point or two, but I think you would agree that you should see more starters playing on the offensive side of the ball for some teams. And I do think that would lead to more points.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess this is going to be the one game where everybody plays the most, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're going to see a decent amount of starters skip game 3 because that's what they used to do for week 4 of the preseason when they had it.
Make sure nobody gets hurt, and they make sure you want to fill out those last few roster spots and see what you got.
Pretty much. So I expect to see some starters for 2, none for 3, basically. But once again, the preseason, we enjoy it as bettors. Fans enjoy it to watch the occasional rookie make a big play. The coaches are increasingly disinterested when it comes to using their actual players in the games, because why bother?
Well, it's really, there's no upside.
No.
There's only downside.
You can make an argument the upsides to prepare for the unexpected when it comes to opposing defenses, but that's also A, assuming opposing defenses are actually going to be running the normal coverages.
Which they're not.
And B, the fact is that you can practice with your own team. Like, people underestimate how often these guys practice besides the actual games they might play. I'm sure they'll be fine if they skip all 3 preseason games.
Yeah, although they are limited in the amount of contact practices here with the last contract, so there is that. But
yeah, but you don't want your star players to get hit anyway.
So here's the question: are we going to have a situation like we had last season, where when they had no training camp, no preseason games, and the first part of the season was just awful. Just the football was just about unwatchable. Lots of unders came in. Are we going to have the same situation, or are these guys going to get enough reps where they can at least have a somewhat decent product on the field the first week of the season?
All I know is that for week 1, you might be tempted by the occasional over. I'm looking at primarily unders for totals. You?
All right. Yeah, I think so until further notice, until I see how well they're going to play. I think that's going to be a trend. I think there's going to be mistakes. I think, especially if you look for teams with a lot of new guys at the skill positions and new skill positions, coaches or head coaches or coordinators, I think all that is going to have a hard time coming together by the time the first week rolls around. So we'll see, Scott. And speaking of week 1, who'd you like? Who'd you think? Who surprised you? Did you see the Trey Lance? At the end of the day, his stats weren't that great. Did make some nice throws, scrambled out of trouble a couple of times. Who had the best? Was it Justin Fields? You think that's who had the best performance?
Yeah, I think if you're going to make a short list, I think Fields has to be on there. I'm still going to laugh when Nagy rolls Dalton out there for the first 3 weeks of the season for no reason. That's going to be pretty funny. But if you want to stick with the rookies or just overall main contributors instead of focusing on who dominated the second half of a meaningless game, which I'm not going to do. I'm sure there are a couple of guys who did well in the second half of games, but I'm sure nobody was watching. Looking at the overall landscape, I thought the rookie quarterbacks played really well. I know you mentioned Lance, who I thought was pretty good. I know the stats weren't that great, but I thought he had flashes. We talked about how Fields was great. I thought Mac Jones looked comfortable. I thought Zach Wilson looked comfortable. I thought the main rookie quarterbacks all looked pretty good in their own right, and I feel like that was a pleasant surprise for their fan bases.
Agreed. Do you think that continues once they start seeing defenses with a little flavor, Scott? Once they start seeing those rocky road instead of vanilla defenses, do you think that makes a little bit of a difference?
Yes, but I don't think you're going to actually see those extremely difficult defenses until the regular season, because we just talked about how coaches might be ironing out the kinks a little bit. But is there really a point in running your normal defense if none of your starters are going to play?
You don't, and even if they do play, you don't want to put any of that stuff on tape that teams are going to be able to get a read off of, especially if you've done anything different, if you got a new DC, something like that.
Yeah, you play soft on the outside, primarily zone coverage, and you give up the underneath stuff.
Yeah, you have very vanilla blitzes. You don't do a lot of stunts and twists and funny stuff like that. You leave that all for the regular season. So yeah, Fields, very very good night for Justin Fields. 14 of 20. 1 touchdown, no interception. He did run the ball 5 times for 33 yards.
Rushing touchdown.
Are they jumping off the buildings in Denver yet, Scott?
In Denver?
For passing on Justin Fields?
Oh, no, because apparently they look good in the first preseason game. No, I'm joking. But I know Locke actually had a big completion for like 80 yards and a touchdown. But as a whole, no. I think that Elway, we'd agree, shouldn't be with the organization anymore because
he's still got some sort of role. I know he's not GM anymore, but
I thought he got promoted.
Is that what is failing upward? Is that they made him president?
I thought that's what happened to him, but
I'm sure. I mean, they can't cut ties with him. They can't let it go.
He won a Super Bowl with them. Then again, he lucked into getting Peyton Manning, which usually helps out in the end. But besides that, you look at the list of quarterbacks that he's acquired. Osweiler, Tebow, of course.
You couldn't begin to do it, Scott.
I was trying to remember the Memphis quarterback they drafted that's out of the league now. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Yep, that guy.
Really, really tall white guy. I forgot what his name was.
They had who they traded the Bears straight up.
Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch is who I was thinking.
Yep, and then they sent who the Bears sent. Who they had for the Orton.
I was trying to remember if Elway was there for that or not, but that was a while back.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, not good. Well, yeah, Elway was definitely there for sending Jay Cutler.
Either way, point is that Elway's gambled a lot on quarterbacks, and they've failed pretty much dramatically besides Peyton Manning. So I don't expect Denver to look good in the regular season despite winning against Minnesota in a blowout in the first preseason game. Hot take.
Totally agree. Anybody you're anxious to see week 2 and see if they continue it?
I feel like the rookie quarterbacks are going to kind of stay the same because I don't really expect many defense to throw adjustments. When it comes to anything else, it's mostly just monitoring some guys or starters who skipped the first preseason game. So I'm not really going to give you a definitive name, but it's like what I said before with totals and how the odds makers might be unavailable to adjust it. I just want to see any starters who didn't play in the first preseason game who might play in this one and just see how they look in game shape.
Okay.
You?
Yeah, I think that's right. It was kind of fun to watch a couple of those guys play and realize the speed. You know, I of course got to see the entire Chiefs game and got to see Trey Lance, and you could tell a couple of those times he's used to taking a couple of steps to the right and, you know, totally freeing himself up to be able to step into the throw. And that wasn't the case. There was either somebody right on his heels or somebody right in front of him that, let's be honest, Scott, at North Dakota State, they probably wouldn't have been there.
I'll tell you what, the one most impressive guys I saw from a speed perspective, actually two Cardinals, because I watched the Friday night game with the Cowboys and the Cardinals. Rondell Moore, I thought looked really good, rookie wide receiver out of Purdue. I thought Chase Edmonds looked really good.
Yeah.
I didn't see James Conner, so I'm not exactly sure what the breakdown's going to be when both of them are active. Chase Edmonds looked like a blur out there. He looked fantastic.
Well,
what I noticed.
I would say if the past is any indication, James Conner will get way more carries than he should.
And then get injured by week 5.
but not injured enough to miss the season, just injured enough to miss a game or two and then not be nearly as good as he was at the beginning of the season.
Pretty much.
Well, Scott, let's talk about the little good news piece, a little palate cleanser here. Tyler Gilbert, 27-year-old Diamondbacks rookie, spent many years in the minor leagues. Scott, he threw a no-hitter in his first start for the Diamondbacks, I might add. So they actually were able to score a run or two. That's what's amazing is it didn't go to extra innings, tied 0-0. He was the first player to do so. Scott, did you know the answer before I wrote this one down?
No.
Bobo Hilliman, everybody. Bobo Hilliman for the 1953 St. Louis Browns, one of the all-time terrible franchises.
Do you remember that performance?
Do I remember? I do not remember Bobo Hilliman. But funny story with Bobo, he was pretty much knocked around for the rest of the season, knocked around the next season, out of the league by the end of the next year. So,
that's kind of similar to the Vandermeer story because he's got the 2 no-hitters, but historically he wasn't a good pitcher.
Yep, absolutely true. So Gilbert, really great story. He was a Rule 5 minor leaguer, which there's 3 levels of the Rule 5 draft. And the minor league level, you don't have to have him on the major league roster. You can put him in any level that you want to. That's what they did with him. They'd had him down in AAA Reno all season long. Finally brought him up to the big club. He made a couple of relief appearances. I think he made 3 relief appearances, had been very good. And then he goes out and tosses the no-no, Scott. So you see that game. If you saw the clips, you saw the highlights, you saw his dad's reaction. He was absolutely pumped up. Is this the best story of the weekend?
I don't know what's better than that story. I mean, that's something that you make a movie about.
Yep.
In like 10 years or so when they actually decide to make it. But that's a great story. There's really not much more to add.
No,
a father being in attendance makes it an even better story for the emotional aspect. But even if the parents weren't there, that's still a ridiculous event.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I just thought the dad he was so, I could see myself because, you know, I went to all the kids played sports and you get so wrapped up in it, Scott. It's unbelievable how wrapped up you are. You know, if you watch those little league videos, the parents screaming at the umpires, you go, what kind of moron would ever do that? And yet you get yourself there, 8-year-old softball or coach pitch game. You're like, what are you doing, Blue? That's a terrible call. What's the matter? And at the end of the day, your wife looks at you and goes, what the hell was the matter? Well, he wasn't making a terrible call. I can't. So to see a dad's reaction like that as a dad, it was an extra heart to me, an extra shot in the heart. It was pretty cool indeed, Scott. So a little bit of basketball news, Scott. Jalen Green has a hamstring injury. Jalen Suggs has a finger injury. Summer league. What are we doing? What are we doing with these guys? Do we worried about this? I mean, why are these guys playing in the summer league, Scott? Can you tell me that?
Well, it's mostly just for the reps, obviously, because you can win a summer league trophy but nobody cares. Right? It's a matter of getting them, I'd say, acclimated to other NBA talent or potential NBA talent, while also introducing them to some members of the coaching staff through games. I mean, some actual coaches will coach on the sidelines. Others have summer league specialists who coach during the summer league with their assistants during the course of the season. So I think it's mostly just getting them into the routine, trying to get them into some familiarity with the organization while also getting them into some familiarity with the coaching staff. So I can understand the idea. And, of course, some freak injuries happen. Jalen Suggs, if you watched him play, we know that he's a very aggressive player who doesn't really shy from contact ever. So I'm not surprised that he might have suffered an injury because he was trying to heavily contest a shot or he was going at the rim against a bunch of 7-footers. I'm not surprised. The Jalen Green one's maybe a bit concerning because of the hamstring injury, but then again, can you really ever prevent the hamstring injury when you're going at full speed at any time?
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit more on the other side of the break here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and I want to ask Scott a couple of probing questions here. Stay tuned, everybody. Watch the timer, dude. Got to be aware where we're at.
Yeah, all good.
5 seconds. 3. All right, guys, welcome back to Winners and Winers Radio. Give us an hour. We'll give you the winners. Now it's 30 minutes. That's all we ask. Hey, we've cut our demands in half, Scott. So here's my question. So, it was kind of rhetorical when I said, what are we doing? I mean, obviously they're getting all those things. They're getting exposed to the coaching staff. They're getting a little better level of competition. But they've got a hell of an investment in these guys. Is it really worth it? And do they need to limit their minutes? Or is there anything they can do to keep their stars healthy? Because nobody's going to care if you won a summer league championship or if you came in second and you can't start the season in October. So
well, I know that you're asking the question just as a generalization on whether or not rookies should play a lot. I think we'd agree that the Jalen Green injury is pretty just unfortunate because of the hamstring issue.
Right.
Can you really prevent that besides just not having him on the court? Because you can get a hamstring injury in practice.
Depends on who you listen to, Scott. There are some trainers that will tell you, well, every trainer will tell you that they have the best program to avoid hamstring injuries. Obviously, there's a lot of them that are wrong because, anecdotally, it almost seems, are we seeing more hamstring injuries or am I crazy?
I think it's possible. I definitely think that they've been around for a long time.
Which one is possible, Scott? Am I crazy or more hamstring injuries?
I'm saying both. I think they're both possible. But
okay,
I remember growing up, they used to tell you the importance of stretching to try to prevent hamstring injuries. I'm sure these guys stretched before the game and they still got injured hamstrings.
Do you know that there's a whole school of thought that there's been research, there's some studies that show stretching has no benefit?
I have actually heard that.
I can't believe it's true. As somebody who's played sports, I know you've played sports. Warming up, stretching, getting those muscles loose, it seems so much, it almost seems like a no-brainer that you're going to have a better performance than if you just came in cold. But the guys, there are some groups that have done research that says it's not true. Personally, I would keep stretching.
I am a fan of stretching anyway because when you're on a team, it makes you feel productive. Even if you're not playing, you might as well stretch to be a bench warmer,
Otherwise, you just look silly for all that time when you're just standing around on the field before the game. You got to have something to do.
Pretty much.
So, all right. So, nothing to do. Just unfortunate. Just a couple of hamstring, which we agree happens. And you tell Jalen Suggs not to be as aggressive. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't change the mentality of these guys, or you want them to keep it. But at the end of the day, I think the one thing maybe that the teams could do, rest them a bit more. Maybe play them every other game. I also think the summer league's too long. I get you want to evaluate your talent, but you have several summer league games, and then you go into the summer league bracket. Do we need this many games before the bracket?
In a league that really no one cares about? I mean, can you tell me, I know you are a massive sports fan who watches NBA like a hawk. Can you tell me who won the summer league last year, or did they not have it because of COVID?
They didn't have it because of COVID.
Okay, do you know who won it in 2019?
I want to say Sacramento, but that might have been a couple of years ago. I'm actually not even sure.
Well, that was a couple of years ago. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know. And here's my question. I don't know either. I wasn't trying to do a gotcha. I was just kind of proving a point that I don't think anybody watches the NBA closer than you do, and yet you're like, I don't know, probably Sacramento.
You can actually bet it. I saw that DraftKings had odds on the summer league champion.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I know you can bet it game to game, but let me ask you this: is it ever an indicator of what kind of season the team is going to have?
Absolutely not.
So, I mean, you mentioned Sacramento winning it, and if they didn't win it, obviously, you had it in your mind that they did really well. So I'll certainly grant you that if they didn't win it. And I don't recall going deep into the playoffs that year.
Fun fact, the Kings won in 2014. The Grizzlies won in 2019. There was no Summer League in 2020.
Another team that made a fantastic playoff run there in the 1920 season. Terrific. Oh, yes. I remember that Grizzly team. No, I don't. No, they did nothing. It means, has the Summer League champion ever turned into the regular champion?
No.
Because, you know, the Royals were the kings of spring training.
Actually, it says the Warriors won in It says the Warriors won in 2013. So I'm not actually sure if they did sweep there. But as a general rule of thumb, no, the teams that win the Summer League are usually bad.
You guys get any money for playing the Summer League? Because I'm assuming everybody on the team doesn't go to the team. It doesn't make the team, obviously.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Summer League's more of a tryout to actually get a contract with the current team you're on.
What do you think they make? $1,000 a week or so?
Maybe, give or take. But they're all looking for that contract to make the roster that most of them won't get.
I'm aware. Yeah, I just wondered what they were getting in the interim time. So, well, Scott, we mentioned a little bit earlier, big day yesterday in baseball for Fernando Tatis Jr. Came back. Scott, he'd been missed a little bit, and he bopped not one but two round trippers yesterday. And a quick look at the MVP odds there in the major leagues. Minus 280 for the National League MVP. Is he a lock, Scott? Do the Padres have to do anything to make the playoffs? Do they have to win a series? Do they have to even show? Can they totally fail down the stretch and not make the playoffs at all, and he can still win it?
See, that's the thing, is that Tatis and DeGrom were so far ahead of everyone else about a month ago. And then, of course, DeGrom is probably out for the year. I mean, he had a setback the other day, so he's got no shot to win it, obviously. There's really nobody else in contention. I mean, you can talk about Tatis, you can talk about Harper, but if the Phillies don't make the playoffs, how is Harper supposed to win the MVP? That was the only narrative that he had going for him.
Right.
Max Muncy, I think, is worth a shot because, of course, he's been fantastic. He had 2 home runs yesterday. I guess the question that I'm wondering is that Tatis has missed time, and San Diego struggled without him. But with him, of course, they've been very good. That obviously doesn't factor in, even though the title is most valuable. I wouldn't say he's a lock because he gets injured all the time. But do you think San Diego needs to make the playoffs for him to win? Because I don't think he does after Trout won it all those times and the Angels were terrible. Tatis, I think, is the best player in the National League. So I'll say it's fair.
Here's the deal. There's a couple of guys that transcend their teams and their team contribution. Mike Trout's one of them. Obviously, he is so much head and shoulders above everybody else. It doesn't matter what the Angels do. And Tatis is another guy who has reached that position. Now, is he as deserving of it as Mike Trout? No, he's not yet. But he is a guy that you see on the posters, you see on the commercials. He's one of the 3 or 4 faces of Major League Baseball. He's got a little extra juice when it comes to this, Scott. So he has the recognition. He has the visibility that normally teams that play on the West Coast and don't make the playoffs really don't get to enjoy because, let's face it, you're not watching many San Diego Padres, Colorado Rockies showdowns there that start at, 11:30 Eastern time. So,
well, it's the same argument with the Heisman Trophy in the Pac-12 because they usually lose out on voters because nobody watches them play.
Yep, that's absolutely true. I agree. So, for the record, I say Tatis. The Padres do not have to make the playoffs, but they will, and Tatis most likely will be your MVP. The only way to fade him right now is through an injury, Scott.
Yep, I agree. I think if Tatis stays healthy, it's his award.
Right, and it's getting close to the end of the season where earlier in the year when DeGrom had been nicked up and everybody's jumping on him, and I'm saying not so fast. I wouldn't bet that much money just against him being injured. There had been some red flags, but Tatis, we're coming down the home stretch. What do we have? 5 weeks left.
Yeah, give or take. I mean, of course, season ends by end of September, so that sounds about right.
Right. So, yeah, I think he's going to be able to stay healthy for the remaining time and take care of business with this reward. And it really, really plays right into the narrative that he came back. First game, 2 home runs, boom, boom. That's going to be on SportsCenter on Sunday night. That's going to be on running the narrative all week long. So yeah, he really did a good job as far as that goes. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, we do have some baseball, Scott. We have a little bigger card than we had last Monday when we had just 5 games. We do have 10 games. None of them are early games, Scott. We're going to get a chance to get involved in all these contests, including a pretty big battle there in the NL East, or at least a big battle for one of the teams, Scott, as the Atlanta Braves square off with the Miami Marlins down there in Fishtown.
Don't disrespect them. The first place Atlanta Braves.
First place Atlanta Braves, my bad. And, you know, I was vaguely aware of that since I do have a futures ticket on them. So I'm happy with the recent developments of the Braves. This one opened up at minus 135. It's been all Braves, pretty much minus 150 at this point. 8.5 is your total. Juice to the under. Touki Toussaint goes for the Atlanta Braves against Garrett. I believe it's I can't think. It's B. It's not Brian. It's not Brad, because he was on.
I think it's Bruce, isn't it?
Bruce Garrett sounds right. No, Brad Garrett was on Everybody Loves Raymond. So
yes,
Bruce Garrett sounds right. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, Scott. It's B. Garrett and it's Touki Toussaint. So we've seen kind of a mixed bag out of Touki Toussaint this year. Scott had 2 fantastic starts to begin the season. Of course, the season for him began roughly the 3rd week in July. He'd been on the shelf fighting injuries, finally got healthy.
It's Braxton Garrett, by the way.
Braxton Garrett, that's right.
I like Bruce more, but that's just me.
I was actually looking that up. It is Braxton Garrett, absolutely correct. So Toussaint came out, made 2 starts, gave up 1 run in each of them. And you're like, oh my God, Touki Toussaint's really good. And then he came out and got shelled. 3+ innings, gave up 6-7 runs, just was awful. And then last couple of games, he's kind of been back to where you'd think he would be, giving up 4 earned runs and 10+ innings. So what are we going to see out of Mr. Toussaint here in this game, Scott? Is it going to be another case where Miami just brings up another pitcher that you've never heard of and they're fantastic? Or is that party pretty much over and it's going to be the better team taking care of business here?
I think it's the better team taking care of business. I know, of course, Miami has won 4 in a row. 3 are against the Cubs, so I'll count those as half victories each time. Cubs are so bad, man.
They really are.
Wow, they're bad. But
it's almost like they got rid of everybody they could hit.
It's really almost like that. And pitch, now that you put it that way. But, yeah, I'm not going to overreact to it. The Braves are playing really well. I believe the Braves have won, 10 of 12, I think?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so they've been playing well, even without Acuna. Freeman's stepped up. Swanson's been nuts over the last couple of days, and I'm a big Austin Riley guy. I still like the lineup. Solaire's done pretty well for them, too. You can make an argument you're not a big Toussaint guy. I don't think Garrett's very good either. In fact, he's so good I didn't even know his first name, or I forgot his first name. I'll go with Atlanta. I just think they're the better overall team by far. You?
Yeah, Garrett's one of these guys. If you look at the surface numbers, they're not that bad. His ERA isn't terrible. But, man, he is an absolute beneficiary of some good first order luck, Scott, and that just simply means the order that the hits and the walks come in, because he gives up 11.9 hits per 9. He walks 4.1 batters per 9. That ain't good. That means you're giving up 16 base runners per game. That's going to keep the old whip up there. So there's a lot of luck that he's had so far as getting runners to score, and I think that the chickens are going to come home to roost sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be surprised to see Atlanta put up a couple crooked numbers on Braxton Garrett in this one. So I'm with you. There's no way to take the Fish here. The Fish have been playing better. They've scored a few more runs lately, but the Braves, they're playing good baseball right now. They're a good baseball team. I think they have that first place in their grasp. They're not going to give it up without.
I agree. But I'll ask you about one game that I'm kind of curious about.
All right.
It involves the Padres and Tatis, who we just talked about, and the Rockies. You have Weathers against Sanzatella. Totals at 12. I can't take the under. Do you like the over there?
I think I'm going to be a pass on that one. I know you're not a Ryan Weathers guy, are you?
He's terrible.
You,
There's really not much else I can add. Sanzatella has been awful this season as well.
can you
We
show
know
me can you show me on the doll where Ryan Weathers hurt you, Scott? Why don't you like
he's
Ryan
just
Weathers?
bad. I mean, there's really not much else to add. If you get shelled by the Marlins of all teams, you got yourself some problems. But Weathers going through the last couple of starts, last 3 starts, 4 innings, 8 runs, 3 innings, 6 runs, 4 2/3, 6 runs. And the 4 innings, 8 run start that I mentioned was against the Rockies. So I think he could be getting shelled in this one. Meanwhile, Sanzatella against Tatis and company, I expect runs as well. Colorado cannot hit on the road, but at home, they can hit a lot. I think you'll see a lot of runs.
So you like the over there?
I have to. Weathers is so bad, and Sanzatella's not good. Plus, we know the bullpen for Colorado's a joke. Is San Diego's bullpen also not a gas can at times? Because it is. I think this total's too low. I think one of these teams should score 8 or 9 runs. It really wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I'm not a big Sensatella guy. I know he was hurt early in the season. He came back first week in August. He's made 2 starts. He's given up 7 runs, over 10 and 2/3. Just one of those were at home. And his home appearance against the Cubs, I'm saying to the Cubs, he gave up 4 earned and 4 and 2/3, including 7 hits, 1 walk. So not ideal. I think you're absolutely right. There could be some runs in that game. Maybe be patient, see if it'll creep down to 11.5.
Maybe. I doubt it. I think if you want to go from a plus price play, I'm tempted to take Tatis to homer. I feel like that's a decent option, isn't it?
I would think so. You got any odds in front of you for that?
No, they usually don't upload it the night before. But as a whole, Tatis kills everybody against the Rockies and Coors. He fares very, very well.
That's not surprising somehow.
It should not be surprising, but it's a fact.
Okay. Well, I don't hate that. And how about Rich Hill and Kevin Gausman, Scott? What do you got there?
I like the first 5 under. Gausman, I know we've talked about lately, kind of struggling a bit, but the Mets got killed again yesterday. They're completely falling apart. Meanwhile, I actually kind of like Rich Hill. He's had a good year. I know with the Mets, his numbers are mediocre, but I think he has flashes. And I do think, of course, at night in the West Coast in San Francisco, I do think that bodes well for the under. But if Hill can limit the amount of home runs given up, because that's all the Giants do for runs, I think you'll see a low-scoring game. I'm looking at the first 5 under.
All right. Yeah, I'm not a Hill's a guy that's wasn't great down there for Tampa, right?
He was very, very good for about a month or two, and then he kind of regressed a little bit. But as a whole, I think he was pretty good on Tampa.
Well, he really hit the wall about the middle of June. He'd been outstanding up until that point. And he was very good his last start out against Miami, Scott. 5 innings pitched, no earned, just 3 hits.
That's the thing about Hill, though. He's guaranteed to give you 5. Nothing more, nothing less. So I'll take the first 5 under.
Yeah, that's pretty true. He hasn't gone more than 5 since the 29th of June. So, all right. I think that's solid. What else you're looking at?
I'm looking at Oakland with Montes against Keuchel. I know that Chicago's been good at home this season. I really wasn't impressed with them over the weekend against the Yankees. I know they won the Field of Dreams game. I know you can roast Kimbrel. What's going on with Liam Hendricks right now? Because he's been awful over the last week and change.
I don't know what's going on with either one of those guys. Both of them are allegedly good relievers, right?
Yes. Now, Oakland, of course, did end up losing 2 out of 3 over the weekend to Texas. So that's not exactly a good look. But Montes and Keuchel, I wouldn't say they're similar stylistically, but they're both inconsistent in their own right. I think Oakland, being a little bit of a dog, it's roughly pick 'em, but Keuchel can get shelled every now and then. It's mostly just fading Chicago's bullpen, because if you don't have your setup guy or your closer pitching well, I can't really back you to win games, can I?
You would think that one of those 2 areas you're going to have some performance out of, right?
Yeah. Plus, the White Sox went to the bullpen really early yesterday because Giolito only went 4 innings. So their bullpen should be gassed. I think that bodes well for Oakland.
Okay. Any interest in the Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds behind Steel? And Jack Steele. I think it's Jack Steele. What a great name, by the way.
It's a great name. It's either Reds or pass. Like, can you really bet the Cubs?
You can't. You can't. You play the under. 9 is the total.
I wouldn't even bother. Reds can score 10 runs. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm just going to go with the Reds run line. I'm not a big Wade Miley guy, but at the end of the day, Chicago invents ways to lose games. They can't hit, they can't pitch, and they can't field. I'll take the Reds at home to score 7 runs or so. Plus, Votto owns this team this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big game in this one.
Dodgers, as it sits right now, Scott, they have not named a starter. It was going to be David Price. I don't know if they're just playing games or if there's been a setback if he's not actually going to make the start. But if you go to DraftKings right now, it is minus 380 for the Dodgers without a starter. What? How much do they hate Steven Brault?
I don't think it's games. If the Dodgers are playing games leading up to a game against the Pirates, you need to fire the manager. Because you got to have more confidence in your team, man. You just scored 14 runs yesterday.
Oh, there's more reasons than that to fire the manager.
Well, Brault's going to be an opener, I believe. Like, I don't think he's going to pitch that much. He'll probably pitch about 4 or 5, but he really hasn't gone much length. Maybe opener's not the right word, but kind of like an Aiken length kind of guy, where he'll give you 3 or 4, maybe 5 if you're lucky. Doesn't matter who's pitching for the Dodgers because I kind of agree with the line. I'm surprised the Orioles are still in the ones or if not like plus 200s. You can put any team at minus 400 against the Orioles, and I wouldn't blame you. But Pittsburgh against the Dodgers, I can't take Pittsburgh. I mean, I can't. This team stinks.
What? You don't like Pittsburgh now?
I can't. I feel like Pirates fans don't even like Pittsburgh.
No, I get that same impression as well. They've been equally bad at home and on the road. They're 18-41.
They're consistently terrible.
Here's as far as meaningless stats go. I'll give you this one, Scott. Pittsburgh 1-9 on Mondays.
Wow.
You know, when you give me a Monday stat, that actually is a little more meaningful than like a Tuesday or a Saturday stat. It only in the fact that it means that they don't play very well coming off of travel.
Do you mean your last 10 Mondays? Because how they only played 10 Mondays?
That's what it says for this season, that they played 10 Mondays.
You're saying season started in April. How do they only have 10 Mondays?
Well, they maybe had some Mondays off. That's Mondays and Thursdays are going to be your days off.
Okay, sure. I don't know. I feel like they should have played more. Either way, that's not good. I don't think days of the week matter. I think Pittsburgh might get on the plane and go, do we really have to do this again? Maybe we should switch sports,
It's one of those things where if you wanted to find trends, you could just read trends all day. They're terrible on Mondays. They're terrible against left-handers. They're terrible at night. They're playing terrible against teams with winning record. They're terrible against teams with winning record in the second half. Nothing to like there. I don't know. What do you play? Dodgers team total over there? I'm not going to lay 380.
You go Dodgers. You go Dodgers team total. You can copy what I did with the Red Sox yesterday. Just take minus 2.5.
Yeah, if you can find
expect a blowout.
Yeah, and but you're going to minus 2.5. Still going to be.
You're still laying 130 probably.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. So
I don't hate it anyway.
All right, very good. Well, Scott, we have reached the point of the show. It is just about the end, my friend. We've made it through another Monday. Congratulations. Only time for one thing and one thing only. That's where we put our heads together and come up with our very favorite play of the day. We had some definite ones to choose from, Scott, but at the end of the day, we have narrowed it down to just one. So put on those overalls, cock your straw cap just a little bit over there to the right, climb up on that John Deere, and get ready to bet the farm.
So, unlike the weekend, hopefully this one doesn't get rained out.
I was going to say, how did we do?
Yeah, it got rained out. We don't really have anything to recap.
Farmers need the rain, Scott.
Yep, farmers need the rain. But anyway, transitioning over to the farm play for today, we're looking at the Indians and the Twins, and we like the first 5 under 5.5 at minus 120 on DraftKings. Cal Quantrill, been very good since the All-Star break last month. 36 innings, 1.25 ERA. Griffin Jacks pitching for Minnesota last month, 20 and 1/3 innings, 2.66 ERA. So both starters have been very good. Winds blowing in slightly at about 11 miles per hour. And the under is 36, 15, and 3 in the last 54 meetings in Minnesota. We think 5.5 is ridiculous. We like the first 5 under in the spot.
Just like those hippies out in Colorado, Scott, that number's a little high. I don't, there could be some bullpen meltdownage coming, but yeah, Quantrill, is that one of the more surprising pitchers here lately?
I did not expect him to have the second lowest ERA since the All-Star break
Right,
in the entire league.
Converted bullpen guy, and not even a long guy out of the bullpen usually. A guy that would usually going to be your setup guy there in the 7th or the 8th. Griffin Jacks, if you watch this kid, you're like, I don't understand it, but he's got location, Scott. He doesn't have a lot of velocity.
It's like a Wade LeBlanc kind of pitcher.
Yeah, very, very similar. So he's been good. I underestimated him a couple of times coming out of the gate, and he ended up beating me. We're going to back him in this one. I like this play. The wind is blowing. Like you said, it's going to be no help to right-handers at all. It's going to be blowing everything foul and in your face. So we do like the first 5 under 5.5. That's a great number, by the way, minus 120 at DraftKings. So that's going to do it for our Bet the Farm play for this Monday. And that's going to do it for Winners and Winers Radio. 1 down, 4 to go this week, guys. We appreciate you listening. As always, you can check us out on our YouTube channel if you want to see how it looks behind the scenes when we do it. If you're on the go and you can't listen to us on the radio, don't forget to download the show on your favorite podcast platform, including Google Play, Spotify, all that good stuff. And for myself, for my partner, Scott Reichel, for the whole team over here at winnersandwiners.com, thanks very much for being part of the show today. We appreciate you guys. Take care. Good luck on all your plays. And we'll see you tomorrow on Winners and Winers Radio. Take care, everybody.